All right, let's get right into it because time is money and money is time. And I don't know about you, but I don't like to waste mine. So we're going to talk about handling sales objections like an absolute boss. For those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Lo Silver. I've been in the social media business coaching space for over 8 years, and I specialize in helping people find and sign high ticket clients all online. I have closed over $1 million all online organically, hence all the money that's dropping behind me in the background, which is kind of lame, but what are you going to do? And I've also helped my clients collectively close over $10 million all online with an emphasis on organic content. So before I dive in really, really deep here, for those of you guys who are here, I'll be talking about this a little bit at the end. But if you're an online coach or service provider who has 5 to 10 calls on your calendar, you probably don't need more leads. You just need to close the ones that you have. And you are probably here because you're getting a lot of these other things, right? A bunch of annoying objections, getting left empty-handed without collecting payment. You're dealing with unqualified leads who are not ready to pay. So you're struggling with qualifying them even before that, maybe through your content, maybe through your pre-call screening process. We got to fix that. Maybe you're getting ghosted or you're getting too many different no-shows, or maybe you're someone who's getting worse at articulating your worth and value on the sales call, which is leaving you empty-handed and keeping you from closing. So if you want to talk about 2xing your income in the next 30 days, I'm going to show you how to do that at the end of this call. And if not, you get your money back. It's a win-win, right? So let's get right into today's conversation. Okay, what are objections? Objections are usually a smokescreen, typically excuses people use to not change their circumstance, mostly fear-based around uncertainty or doubt. It's definitely unanswered questions, and it's never a bad thing. Objections are never a bad thing. And I think we have this preconceived notion that they are because they're a little bit scary and intimidating, but they're not bad. And we want to talk about how to actually not just handle them, but obliterate objections so that by the time you get to the end of a call, you can have an objectionless sales call, which is the ultimate goal. I really am an expert in the one call close process. And I want to teach you how to actually get on calls with people who are ready to give you their credit card. So why do you get objections in the first place? There are really 2 reasons why. The first one is that you're on the call with the wrong people, which is what I'm talking about, learning how to qualify your leads better. Or the second thing is that the prospect doesn't trust you and they don't see your value. That's really the only 2 reasons that you will ever get objections on a sales call. And our goal is to really fix that. So how do we gain our authority and not look like a little bitch when we get objections, right? Because that's what ends up happening. We get objections, we get scared, we get nervous, we get uncomfortable. So I want to talk about the 4 C's that you have to have. Every great closer has these 4 C's: conviction, charisma, confidence, and character. Before we talk about scripting, you have to have these 4 things. Before you talk about having a great script, sales script that's phenomenal, closes this and that, and so on and so forth, all these things, you have to have these 4 things. So conviction is you believing in what you're selling. Do you actually believe in it 100%, right? Charisma is you're excited about what you're selling. Like you can show up passionate, you've got the enthusiasm, like you've got that sales riz, you're on that call and you're excited to be there. The third thing is the confidence. You are capable of executing what you're selling. So this could be for my online coaches. You're really confident that you can actually help the person get the result they're looking for, and that confidence is exuded. Or maybe you're a remote closer, so you're not executing, like you're not facilitating the offer, but you know that the person who is gets a lot of really great results and gets their clients like massive wins, which means that you have confidence behind the offer, right? Now, the 4th thing that I've added here is character, because I think it's important that you are ethical with what you're selling. Like, not only do you believe in it, but you know it works. You know that this person actually needs it, and you're not just selling it to them just because you're chasing a check. You know ethically that this person needs this offer. So if you can have these 4 things on any sales call, you will win over any script. I always tell people, ditch the script, focus on these 4 C's. You're going to close people all day long. Now, I want to give you guys a little bit more of a continuation on this gaining of authority, because those of you guys who feel a little bit insecure or you feel like you are nervous on sales calls, there are definitely a lot of psychological sales cues that can keep you from closing a call and that can actually help you to close a call. And I'm going to walk you through the 7 that I find to be the most important that go beyond just your technical sales script, right? Number 1 is the way someone actually expresses their attitude towards the prospect and the words they use, which is also known as tone. So your tone is super important because it's going to indicate and it's going to be indicative of the way you actually feel. And we all know there's undertones in the way that we speak, like we might say something, but it's the tone you use that can indicate whether or not you believe something or you don't believe something, or you're mean or you're nice, is the tone. So tone is super important. This is a big one for a lot of my women out there. The second thing is body language. So body language is the process of communication through conscious and unconscious gestures and movements, which includes moving in and out of the screen while speaking, specifically if you're doing calls on Zoom, or even if you're doing them on a phone. It's so important that you're actually actively walking or up and moving, or if you're sitting, like you're active, because body language can actually come through your verbal if you are doing it correctly. So body language is a big thing. It's going to show someone how you feel. Your voice inflection, which is the variation in your pitch and your tone. So if I'm talking to you how I'm talking right now, imagine if I was just like, how to gain authority, part 2. So there's 7 psychological sales cues that you would need in order for you to be successful. Number 1 is this, but in my voice inflection, going up, going down. This is like a little key I'm going to give you guys when you're on sales calls. It is important that even when you're asking questions, that you sound like you're making statements. People only buy from people who are sure. And the way you can come across really sure is by making sure that your tone drops at the end of every one of your sentences. So it's really important that instead of me saying asking a question and going up at the end, that I'm going to go down instead. So I'm going to say, oh, like you're generating, like how much are you generating every month? Or like, how much are you generating every month? Me asking that same question and having my tone drop down at the end and bring the inflection down is super important. Pay attention to that. A lot of you guys who go up every single time when you're speaking like this, oh, you're making this much? Or how are you trying to do this? Or this is what we do. We're able to help people achieve this. What you're doing is you're raising doubt with someone with having your tone go up like that at the end. It's also just incredibly annoying, so don't fucking do it. The 4th thing here is silence. Silence is super important in sales. The more space and pause you can create in certain scenarios, the more you can really emphasize something for people. I think in sales, we find dead space and we feel like it's important for us to fill it with words. When what you're doing is you're just overwhelming people and you're losing your authority in the call by not being silent. So silence is literally the absence of sound. Shut up sometimes. It's really important in sales that you learn how to have silence. Brevity is the concise and exact use of words. Brevity is incredibly important in sales. And the reason that is because you want to make sure when you're asking questions that they're not only intelligent, but the way you're asking them are very clear and concise. And this way the person doesn't get confused. This way you also don't sound like, you don't know what you're talking about. You actually sound like you know exactly what you're talking about and you're really sure. So brevity is incredibly important. And then the last 2 are going to be your cadence and your tempo. Cadence being the rhythm in the way that you speak, tempo being the rate and speed. The combination of cadence and tempo are incredibly important because cadence is that flow. So again, if you're kind of monotone or you're speaking in one lane here, like one frequency, and it's just like this, it's really boring, you're going to lose your audience. It's important that you're bringing the charisma to a sales call, and charisma in a technical breakdown has a lot to do with voice inflection, your body language, your cadence, your tempo. Like these are the tangible things that helps one to have charisma on sales calls. You want to be looking like you're the boss, like you're the authority, that you're excited, that you're super confident. These 7 psychological sales cues, if done correctly, can make you look like an absolute superstar on the call. And that's really a big focus when it comes to sales. Now, I want to walk through what each objection that you get really means, because I think it's important for you to understand where these come from and like what's really lying underneath it. So the first thing is I can't afford it versus that's really expensive. The one thing I want to clarify for you is that those 2 are 2 different things. So when someone says I can't afford it, oftentimes that means that they understand the value of what you're talking about, but they simply don't have the cash to be able to pay. And that's not, I won't say that's all the time, but it's majority of the time. When we do get that objection, that could also still mean that someone doesn't see the value. Now, that's really expensive means that that person literally doesn't see the value. They cannot equate the price that you just dropped to the value of the offer. The 2 don't line up for them. So I just want to clarify those for you, that I can't afford it or that's really expensive can mean 2 different things. They don't necessarily always mean the same thing. But to generalize this for you, anytime you get one of these 2 objections, it could be a you thing, meaning like you didn't do a great job of articulating your worth and value on the call. So the person feels like the price that you said for the offer, it doesn't match the value, and thus they think it doesn't have, proper value. The second thing is it could potentially be them. And your goal here is that you need to help them to get a little bit creative and understand like exactly what the real objection is. At the end of the day, all the objections I'm listing off here for the most part are practically smoke screens. It's a first layer of the objection, and your goal is to dive deeper underneath to figure out the true objection. The second objection is I need to think about it. If you get this objection, it can mean that there's a lack of clarity or understanding. So again, you didn't do a great job on the sales call of articulating your worth and value. Or potentially there's a lack of urgency. Was this person really qualified in the first place? Were they really serious about jumping into your offer? Or did they come into this kind of wanting to explore it further? This is something that this objection and all the rest of them are things that you can identify before you get on the sales call by following my pre-call screening process, so that you can learn this, and that way you don't get on a call with someone who's wasting your time. We don't want to do that. The third one is, can you send me this in writing, or can you send me a proposal? Typically, this is either one of two things. The person is like radically like analytical. They love to overthink things, and this is how like their brain works. So that's one type of person that you might get. The second person is still lacking clarity, or they're, and I write here, a confused prospect never buys. So someone who's lacking clarity, again, you didn't do a great job on the sales call. There wasn't proper structure when you walk them through your high level promise or your pitch that made it really clear to them on what you do, how you do it, who you serve, and why you're the solution for them. So typically people who are confused about your offer will ask you to send them a proposal. I need to speak to my spouse. 3 things here. 1, the person lacks responsibility and they love to push the power on someone else. I love this objection because it has more to do with the power shift than anything else. The second one could be that someone's just trying to deflect the decision to someone else. Like they just don't want to take the ownership. Again, that's a power thing. And then the third thing is that the person doesn't feel empowered to make their own choices. There's a lot of power issues when it comes to, I need to speak to my spouse. And the one that I didn't include here that's pretty simple and practical is that some people will say this as a way to just get off the call with you. And that might be because that person doesn't really see the value of your offer because you didn't do a great job of actually pitching it. The second to last one is, I want to try it myself first. I've gotten this like a few years ago, a few different times. Ever since then, I've never gotten it again because, like this objection and all the rest of them, I deal with this in my pre-call screening process to make sure I'm not getting on a call with someone who is not ready to buy. Like at the end of the day, you should not be getting on a call with someone who's not ready to make a purchase. So 2 things to consider here is that this person might be overconfident. And the reason they could be overconfident, and some of you coaches and some of you closers on here, I know do this, is that you made it seem easy to solve their problem. So if you're on a sales call with someone and you start over coaching and you start giving them information, they might feel like, wow, I just got a solution right here. I don't really need to hire this person yet because I just got this information. And they might think that that is enough for them to go get the result they're looking for, when we both know that that is not the case. You were just trying to add some value. And because you did some over coaching, now this person's overconfident. It feels like they can go and do it on their own. Some people also, again, expand too far or too much on topics. And because of that, the person is like, oh yeah, like I know exactly what you're talking about. I can go do it myself. And they don't even think that they need your help or an expert in the first place. So be really careful with this. This is where we talk about coaching. And this is where I walk through in my cash closing method through my scripts, like when coaching is appropriate and when it's not. And if you're leading with coaching, I will not be surprised if you're not closing people because you're giving away too much value on the call that has them thinking that they can do it on their own. And the last one is, now isn't the right time. So people who have like a timing issue, 1, potentially the lead was not qualified. Again, you can deal with this in the pre-call screening process and figure out like what their urgency is. Are they ready to get started now? Are they ready to get started in a few months? Are they interviewing other people? Things like that, right? Or figuring out this, essentially before it becomes an objection. This is what we call an obstacle that you would see in a pre-call screening process. But if you wait for a sales call, it will definitely be an objection. I think that's important for you guys to really understand. So these are the major objections that I see from people. There's a lot of other ones that I cover throughout my entire process, but these are the kind of main ones that I hear a lot of people asking about, and I wanted to just share with you. Now, how to handle objections. This is a rule of thumb I want you guys to know when you're thinking about like, all right, this person just gave me this crazy objection. Like they need to speak to a spouse, or like, they need to think about it. What do I do? Here are my rules of thumb, okay? Number 1 is to get creative. It's important that when you're getting objections that you are actually actively thinking and not just regurgitating questions that you're getting from some sort of script. You have to be active. You have to get creative with handling the objection. When I say getting creative, it's also about paying attention to the prospect while they're speaking to you throughout the call. This way, you can pull things that they said verbatim and use that back against them as ammo in the conversation. You can't do that if you're just trying to objection handle and trying to be very technical. You need to be creative and take things from the rest of the call to pull into your objections. The second thing is isolating objections. Again, like I mentioned earlier, all those different objections, there goes my ring light, but we're just going to keep going because this is business, baby. What you have to understand about getting different objections is that it's initially a smokescreen, regardless of the objection that you do get from someone. So regardless of what someone, let's say someone says like, I just can't afford it right now. If you just say, okay, like, well, why can't you afford it right now? Oh, like, I'm just like at a place in my life where I'm just trying to figure things out, so on and so forth, right? If we just get a basic objection, you have to understand that that is the initial smokescreen. It's the superficial layer of the objection. And objections are kind of like onions, and people are like onions. Your goal is to kind of peel back the layers on the onion and to get to the core root of the issue. So we have to isolate the objection by asking intelligent questions in order to do so. So if someone says, Lo, like I really can't afford this right now, I think it's too expensive, I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask that person, expensive compared to what? Well, I mean, I was interviewing other people and I know someone who does it cheaper. Boom. That's the objection. And now when I hear someone say that, I can say, well, okay, like, well, let me ask you a question. Like, what do you value more? Do you value if you can get at the best price, or do you value getting the best result? Which one do you value more? And by asking that question, I'm pulling back those layers and I've isolated that objection. Third thing here is going from sitting across the table to sitting next to someone. Sales is not about you versus them. It's about coming from sitting across the table and sitting next to this person so that the two of you guys feel like you're making a decision, an educated and informed decision together, and also an empowered decision, that this person feels like you're on their side, that you're finding the best solution for them, not that you're trying to sell them on something. The fourth thing here is going to war. So again, when we get objections, some of us get hot, right? We get like nervous, we start sweating, we start feeling uncomfortable. Some of us get a little bit pushy, we start shoving the product down their throats. Some of us get a little bit introverted and inside of ourselves, and we just want to run off the call. You have to be willing to go to war. If you can, which is point number 5, focus on serving people over selling people, it's easy to go to war. To give you an example, when I'm on a sales call with someone, and they've just talked to me for 45 minutes about how they've been trying to lose 50 pounds for the past, 5 years after having their second kid. And they've been having the hardest time doing it. They're waking up every single morning. They look in the mirror. They're not happy with what they see. They're struggling, picking up their kids or playing with them, being mobile like they used to be. I have no problem going to war with this person when they give me an objection, simply just because I want to actually help them. I want them to be able to pick up their kids. I want them to be able to feel mobile. I want them to feel confident when they're looking at themselves in the mirror. So it's important to go to war for that person. And it's also incredibly important that when you're on sales calls, you have a serving voice over a selling voice. And I think sometimes we ask questions that sound more like we're selling than asking questions that sound like more like we're serving. So paying attention to that. And the last and final thing that, and the whole point of sales in general, is to help someone to make an informed and educated decision. And when someone has the ability to make an informed and educated decision and an empowered decision, it's a great decision. And if you aren't willing to handle objections and go to war and serve someone, then you can't help this person really figure out if this is the best solution for them to get the result that they're looking for. So these are the major rules of thumb that I always love to bring up when it comes to handling objections. Now, a random point that I just added to this as kind of like a bonus was the difference between selling men versus women, like women to men, women to women, men to women, and men to men, right? The dynamic is very different, and it has a lot to do with the different energies that you're getting from people. I do find that a lot of women come to me because women on call, specifically with men, feel like the man is the alpha. He's taking over the call. He's talking over you. He's devaluing your offer. You're getting on the call. You're super smiley and you're like, hey, and you're people pleasing and you're over complimenting and you're doing all these things that are taking away from your credibility, your authority, and you being the expert in the space. And what you have to understand is like, we cannot do that. Same thing with men, right? Men getting on calls with other men and dealing with, really big personalities, or even women who have really alpha personalities, or even being a man yourself who has the alpha personality and you're getting on calls with people who are a little bit more beta, understanding the energy that lies underneath it. And it's imperative that when women are selling to men, that you you enforce this idea that they have to earn your energy. They have to earn your attention. They have to earn your smile. And you can't go into these calls immediately people pleasing. This has a lot to do with your tone, voice inflection, and body language. If I'm a woman selling to an alpha man who's getting on the call trying to take over immediately, I'm not going to be like, hey, John, yeah, how's your week been? I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, yeah, cool. Uh-huh. Yeah, where are you located? Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, I will listen, I really value your time. And I really want to respect it. So, like, do you want to go ahead and dive in? You're passing all your authority to him. You are literally telling him that you value his time more than you. Your energy is giving off super desperate and super annoying and just super, like, thirsty. We don't want to do that. So, as women selling to men, I'm getting on a call with Alpha John and I'm like, hey, John, how's your week been? Okay, I love that. Yeah. Whereabouts are you located? Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. Listen, I got like 15 minutes or so. Do you want to go ahead and dive right in so we can get started? My goal is really just to establish like what's going on with you right now and where you'd like to be in the next 90 days or so. And ultimately, if you and I align and we feel like it's a good fit, then what we'll do is we'll talk about, one, building out a strategy specifically designed for you. And number two would be the investment that goes with that. Sound good? Perfect. So let's get into it, right? Like Alpha John doesn't give a fuck about where I'm living, what I'm doing. He doesn't care about any of those things. He is a man that's making millions of dollars and he has shit to do, right? So he's coming to me with a problem that I'm willing to solve and he needs my help to figure out if I'm the perfect fit for it and if he's going to be a perfect fit for me as well as a client. So your goal here is to establish that. Again, same thing with my men who are getting on calls with women or even with men who are struggling to close. It's about matching the masculine or feminine energy that someone's getting you and coming to you with. And I think it's imperative for you to understand not just your gender, right? Because gender for me, sales is non-binary. It's gender queer. It's about being able to match energy, and energy is not attached to a specific gender. Every man, woman, non-binary person has both masculine and feminine energy at different times. And it's important to understand how to tap into each appropriately. So I want to walk you through my framework and formula on how to obliterate objections. And I love this because I think it's really helpful when you think about objections as a whole. So number one, we've got the formula, okay? Number one, you get an objection. So someone says no, like somehow, right? I need to speak to my spouse. I can't afford it. Send me a proposal. I know someone who does it cheaper, right? We get some sort of no. The goal here is to be silent. So step number two is silence. Immediately when someone gets a no, you want to be like, well, I could do this, and like, you can also get this, or like, well, why? Like, why are you saying no? Or like, it's to be silent first. So someone's like, I can't afford it. Silence. Get into our third step, which is asking clarifying questions. If you remember back to the beginning of this entire conversation when I talked about, what objections really are, objections are mostly like unanswered questions. Like people just have more questions. They definitely just know like, oh, I have more questions about this. So your goal here is to clarify, well, why is it a no? So they said no, silence. Now we want to figure out why. So someone says to me, well, well, I know somebody could do it cheaper. So like, I just, I want to kind of like evaluate what they could do. Oh, okay. So I'm silent, sitting there, I'm acknowledging that person's point. And I'll say, okay, well, like, John, my question for you is really simple. Do you value getting this at the cheapest price possible, or do you value getting the best result possible? Like, what do you feel like is the most important thing here? I'm asking a clarifying question to really isolate this person's values. So if he says, and most people will say, no, I want to get the best result possible, then I dive deeper into that objection further. Okay, so like, are you willing to make a larger investment to get the best possible result you can? Or would you just want to more so focus on getting at the cheapest price, even if it doesn't get you the exact result you're looking for? Here, I'm just clarifying, practically asking the same question twice, just slightly different. So we get the no, silence, asking clarifying question. Then we go into isolating the objection. So when I go to ask this question about, value, like getting the actual result they're looking for versus getting the cheaper price, I'm really isolating the real objection here. So I'm going to go into, the person's going to respond and tell me like, I do value, like, I want to get the best result possible. That's the thing I value the most. Then I can dive in deeper into that. So out of curiosity for you, like, what do you feel like is the separation between you getting the exact result you're looking for? in this scenario? Because it seems like you want to evaluate cheaper options. Is that because there's something missing? Like, is there a value issue, or you don't believe that this is the exact solution to help you get the result you're looking for? No, it's really just because, and then we start getting into a budget thing. The person might say, well, I was looking at this other person simply because like their price point was cheaper, and I'm just at a place right now in the business where our budget is blank, blank, blank. Now we're having a completely different conversation about the budget and how they can make an investment versus if they want to. They want to make an investment in this situation in someone, with someone, right? But my goal here is to help them to understand why we are valuing getting the result, even at a higher rate or higher price. So isolating the true objection and then hitting that thing head on. So once we do get that objection, then I'm asking even further questions and I'm diving deeper into it to figure out, exactly how to hit that objection head on and essentially obliterate it. So to give you another example of this, like someone says like, no, I just like really can't afford this right now. And I will be silent and say, okay, so when you say like you can't afford this right now, just for clarity's sake, Stephanie, is it a value issue for you? Like you don't believe the solution I'm bringing is the exact thing that you need to get the result you're looking for? Or is it simply just a monetary aspect, like you don't have the 15K cash? Here, I have to ask a clarifying question to identify what it really is. Because if the person just says like, no, low, I know the value in this, I see it, I literally just don't have the 15K cash, I can dive deeper into actually how we can make that work, some sort of payment plan, right? We can go down into breaking down a budget. We can talk about how we can make it work, but we go from if they're going to pay to how they're going to pay right here. If the person comes back and they're like, well, I just don't know if this is included in this. And so I feel like, boom, I pulled out the real objection. I wasn't maybe super clear in my high level promise or in my pitch. And there was maybe something missing that added incredible value to this person that made them want to buy. So when I ask them, is it a value issue or is it a monetary issue? Is it a financial issue? Which one is it? If they come back and they tell me it's a value issue and that there's something missing, it gives me the opportunity to actually cover that and walk them through how what they're looking for is actually included in my offer. So it's important here that we ask the clarifying question. Once I do that, then I can isolate it. So if I ask the person like, is it a value issue or a financial issue? And they're like, I just don't have the 15K cash. This is where I'm isolating that objection specifically. Or if I'm using some other objection, like someone says, I need to think about it, right? They go, yeah, I need to think about it, low. I'll be like, okay. So when you say you need to think about it, like, is there something in your head that you're trying to kind of mull over that you need to think about for, like, what's the one thing? Well, I'm really trying to blank, 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 boom. That's where we've isolated the true objection. Now we can walk through it together and we're back into the sales conversation. I'm going to give you an example of that in a little bit, but I just wanted to explain that here just to see how the formula works. So in more detail, let's kind of break this down into some objections. I kind of just did that, but I'm going to do it again here in full depth. So number one is the objection. I need to think about it. I don't know if I can do it. I just need some time, right? Like that whole objection. So I want to write this out for you. I wrote this out for you, and then I'm going to explain and kind of role play it live with you, with myself, which I think is funny, but we're going to do it. So I need to think about it. The thing you have to understand about this type of objection is that you're the person who holds all the answers that they would need to think about. So it is really important that the prospect understands that you're the person that has those answers and no one else does. Leaving the call is not going to get them the answers they're looking for. So typically a prospect will say this for a few different reasons. Number one, you may not have been as clear as you would have liked to be on the call, leaving them confused. So it's incredibly important you follow my cash closing method and you follow it all the way through so that your entire sales script is clean, clear, and concise. If you don't, then they might leave confused. We don't want to we want to control the controllables. If you can kill a sales call by following a structure, then you don't have to worry about this first one. The second thing is that they just want to get the hell off the call. Some people just get so overwhelmed that they're just trying to get off the call. And then the third thing is that they're interviewing a few different people and they want to weigh out their options. So typically when I get it, I need to think about it. It's for these three reasons right here. Usually the second option, they just want to get the hell off the calls. They're just feeling overwhelmed and they just want to get off. So this all could be addressed before you even price drop if you have a proper sales structure and you're following my cash closing method. So that way you can deal with what I call obstacles before they become objections. An objection is something that you get the moment you price drop. Once you tell someone the price, so to work with me over the course of the next 3 months, to increase your conversion rates and close more clients on call, it's a one-time investment of 15K. After I price drop is when I get objections. Before I price drop are all the obstacles that you're going to receive on a sales call that you can deal with and obliterate so that you don't even get objections at the end. If you can do that, then you won't get objections. When someone says that they need to think about it, if they leave the call, remember, you have to realize that the answer really lies with you. And so it's imperative that this person truly is able to gather all the information that they would need to make an informed decision with you, because you're the person who holds that. So you have to understand that it's not possible for someone to leave a call and to be able to think on something further without speaking to you. So this is the way that you absolutely destroy this objection. Typically when I get I need to think about it objection, someone's like, yeah, Lo, I don't know. This all sounds great. I just need some time to think about it. This is what I love to do. I will always say, okay, yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, and you always want to acknowledge them. So I follow an APQ method I talk a lot about, but acknowledging, personalizing, and questioning. So I'm going to acknowledge them and say, I mean, absolutely. If I was you, I need to think about this too. You just met me like 20 fucking minutes ago. Like, you don't even know who I am. So I would need to think about it too. I'd love for us to schedule a follow-up call. While I'm looking at my calendar, I'd love for you to tell me, like, what exactly are you mulling over in your head that you're thinking further on, that you need to kind of just spend some more time thinking about. That way, like when we have our call, I can be most prepared for our call and know exactly what's going on. Two things can happen here. Number one, someone might just say, like, I'm just someone who likes to think things through. At that point, we want to do what you hear oftentimes in sales, bam, bam, book a meeting from a meeting. So of course, book the meeting directly on that call. But sometimes some people will just literally tell you what the thing is. They might be like, well, I just don't know about the price because I know that I've talked to some other people about blah, 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 blah. Boom. We're back in the sales conversation just simply by you asking that question. So again, the technique I like to use is saying, yeah, absolutely. Like if I was you, I would need to think about this too. Let me go ahead and get a call scheduled. Let me just go ahead and look at my calendar. I'm going to get this booked. While I'm doing that, I'd love to know, like, what do you feel like is the thing you're actually trying to kind of mull over in your head? Or what is it that you're thinking about that you need more clarity on, just so I could be most prepared for our call together. And that person sometimes will just tell you what the real objection is. And then you can actually jump directly back into the sales objection and sales conversation and get them to close on the call. So that's just an example. That's the first one. Second example I'm going to give you, I can't afford it, right? So this person comes to you and they're like, to work with me over the course of the next 3 months to help you lose that stubborn belly fat and get you feeling confident and 100% in your authority, it's going to be a one-time investment of 3K. The person says, like, I can't afford it, right? The thing you have to understand about this objection is that people will always afford what they want to afford. So if someone really wants to see a change, they're going to find the money. The best way for you to handle the I can't afford it objection is to really paint the picture super clear for the prospect of what the cost is going to look like for them in the future. So you have to actually get this person to compare the cost that what they spend today to avoid the cost of the future. In most cases, the prospect like really changes nothing after they have that sales call. If they say they can't afford it and they leave, their situation is progressively going to only get worse. And it's going to be even harder for them to fix it. So your goal here is to paint the picture of, listen, like, I totally understand like what's going on. I hear where you're coming from when I already go through, right, the value versus financial. So, hey, Stephanie, is it a value issue or a financial issue? No, it's purely financial. Like, I just don't have the money to afford this right now, right? We just don't have the money. My goal here is to be like, Stephanie, honestly, I've just been talking to you for the past 45 minutes, hearing your story about having the 2 kids and like just the body struggle you've been experiencing. More importantly, the confidence struggle you've been experiencing for the past 10 years. You and your partner both have been just like seeing the consequences of this and just really feeling this, not just in your personal life, but in your relationship and just so many other things. Like, I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice by letting you lead this call and me not helping you. So like, I really want to help you and help myself understand further, like, do you understand right now, like, you making this investment, do you understand that, yeah, it has a cost of 3K today, right? But are you okay, with the cost of what would happen in the future if you don't make that investment today? Because I know that we're moving in this progressive state where things are probably going to stay the same or get worse if you keep just doing what you're doing. And hearing from you over the past 5 years, not much has really changed. So can you afford the price of what's going to happen in the future, what's going to cost you in the future? Or are you willing to make a small cost or investment today to fix your situation. So your goal here again is to kind of communicate to this person and compare the cost of what the future is to the cost of right now, and how the investment of today is worth it. And it's going to be the thing that's going to keep this person from making a larger, investment in the future. Because specifically, if I'm using a weight loss example, if this person keeps moving in this situation, in this upward pattern, and they're gaining 10 pounds, every 6 months, 5 years from now, and, they're at a point where they're, dealing with heart issues or conditions, at that point, your expenses will be so much more because they didn't take care of the situation here. So from a perspective, from a salesperson's perspective, I just want you to understand that when you're selling, like, you have to really understand that there's going to be a larger cost at the end of the day for that person. So your goal here is to get the person to understand the cost of the future if they don't pay today's price. So are they willing to do that? And like I said, it's important to be really patient and diligent here with handling some of these different objections, because at the end of the day, your goal here is not to force the sale on the person. It's to get them to realize the situation for themselves by asking intelligent questions. So again, to rephrase that for you, when I get someone who says like, Lo, I can't afford it, I would say, Stephanie, I just heard you talk for X amount of time about this, and this. Hearing where this is going and just being really transparent with you about what this looks like. If you keep going in this direction, my real question to you is, can you afford what the future cost would be if you don't pay today's price? Like, if you don't take action today, can you afford what that could look like? You want to ask that question to that person. By this point, they usually are just standing in their own way. And so it takes grace, patience, tone, brevity, body language to be able to walk through this objection really gracefully. Also depends on the industry that you're in. So I just want to walk through these two different examples with you live on call so that you could see it for yourself. And hopefully this is really valuable for you overall. Now, one thing I just want to share with you before I close this out is how to minimize objections as a whole. Because I've been someone who's worked in the social media space, I often get a lot of these types of questions. And so number one is content and ads is going to be a great way to minimize objections, because how you show up in your content and who you speak to in your content is going to help you to qualify leads and to not have to deal with these objections. So are you attracting the correct person who's willing to pay your price? That comes from content. What you put out is the direct type of client you get. If you're not happy with your leads right now, I want you to go back and look at the content you're currently creating. I want you to look at the ads that you're curating. I want you to look at the messages and DMs you're sending people. And I really want you to see if that reflects your price point and who you want to serve. And if it's not, you have to fucking fix it. Second thing is your pre-call qualifying application or your pre-call screening process. Are you pulling out red flags before the call? If someone fills out one of my applications before getting on a call with me and they say on the application that they're not willing to make an investment on call, that's a red flag. I can deal with that in my triage process or my vetting process before the call if I just do my due diligence and reach out to them. So important. 3, deal with those red flags. Are you doubling back to walk through the potential obstacles? So when someone says it on the application, am I following a process in order to go back and either text that person or call them and walk through an entire sequence to not only qualify the lead, but get them ready to have their credit card on the call? The 4th thing is double confirming. This is a simple one. Some people don't actually show up or ghost a call simply because you didn't double confirm. I always confirm the night before and the day of to make sure that I don't get ghosted on a call. And then my last one is detail and communication and automations. Are you decreasing sales resistance? Oftentimes we get a lot of objections because things are not clear. Your communication isn't clear. Your deliverables aren't clear. Your offer isn't clear. And because of that, we're creating sales resistance, which we want to minimize in order to make more money. So my biggest thing for you guys to understand is like, there was a lot of value in this about like how to manage and deal with different objections and how there's different psychological cues you're experiencing, different triggers and buzzwords and things that you could be saying and using. But if you want to learn how to actually obliterate objections or never even see them in the first place, book a call with me. If you're an online coach or a service provider who has found a lot of value in this and you have 5 to 10 calls currently on your calendar, maybe you're someone who also doesn't have so many calls. Maybe you only have 3 calls on your calendar, or you're struggling to get calls on your calendar. You don't always need more leads. You just need to close more of the ones that you already have. Or maybe you are someone who's new to this process and you are struggling to get those leads. If you are one of those 2 individuals and you are getting a bunch of annoying objections, left empty-handed without collecting payment on call, you're getting unqualified leads who are not ready to pay, you're getting ghosted, or you're struggling to actually articulate your worth and value on call, book a call with me down below by clicking on this link. What we can do is we can focus on 2xing your income in the next 30 days or your money back guaranteed. This is super new for me, adding in this guarantee, but I am so adamant and so positive about the results I know can get for people because of the hundreds of clients I've been able to help and help them to close so many different clients and walk through different objections and just create a different sales process for them that feels ethical and that feels safe and that feels something that they enjoy. So if you are one of these individuals who's struggling with any of these things, I challenge you to book a call with me. We can chat more. It's a free call for us to dive deeper into exactly what's going on with you and to get you closing way more clients upfront and full on sales calls and mastering the one call close so that you don't have to get any objections. So if that's you, book a call with me. And if you do, I look forward to seeing you on a call. Peace.